Welcome back, guys, to the TheSpurgeonPiper. This is Wilson with you. So, how do you keep your pipe lit? I asked on a poll recently on my channel, what are some aspects of pipe smoking you beginners are struggling with, and this was the winner, unsurprisingly so, because it's probably the most difficult aspect of pipe smoking. Everything from choosing your pipe and tobacco to cleaning it on the other end of everything else, because it requires the most patience and trial and experience to solve it and figure it out yourself. And along with that, as far as answering that question, if someone asks me, my pipe's going out, how would I keep it lit? It's kind of like asking a doctor, I have a headache, solve it for me. Well, that could be a lot of reasons, couldn't there? From everything from you have too much screen time and your eyes need a rest to you have brain cancer. I mean, I know that's a pretty grave analogy, but I think you get my point. There could be loads of issues. And so to touch on this video, or excuse me, on this topic in this video, which I've been hesitant to do because it's so difficult, I'm going to go through several steps that you can check off to make sure, okay, this isn't the problem, or maybe it's a couple of the issues at hand, and you can walk through it and hopefully it solves the issue for you, or at least cuts down on how many times you're lighting your pipe. Before we begin, let me encourage you through this process. Again, patience is needed. Number two, you're going to have to light your pipe several times. And where in the past, when we were stuck with mostly matches, that kind of sucks. Now we have the luxury of lighters, which they've been around for a while, but everyone has the luxury of lighters. And they can be cheapo Bics all the way to, some nicer lighters that you can get your hands on. And so take advantage of the technology and just light your pipe, and eventually you'll be able to cut down on how many times you light it if you practice. All right, so let's get into the issue at hand. And before we talk about packing our pipe or how to light it initially or everything like that, I want to touch on the moisture of your tobacco, because you can have everything else solved, but if your tobacco's too wet, you aren't going to have luck. It's simple as that. So we have to start with tobacco moisture. Is it too wet? And let me target real quick aromatics. If you're soaking an aromatic 95% of the time, if maybe not more, you need to dry it out. It's too wet and you're gonna have a lot of suffering when it comes to trying to keep it lit. So air it out. My quick way of doing that is 10 seconds in a microwave. I take out what I want to smoke, I put it on a napkin, paper towel, whatever, 10 seconds in a microwave, fill my pipe up with it. It works overall. You can give that a go. But for what I'm covering here, I want to encourage you to stay away from aromatics. That's why I usually don't recommend them for beginners. And try just a basic Virginia Burley blend or something at English blend or whatever. If you're wanting recommendations, I have given videos on beginner blends. All right. So you have your tobacco. Is it too wet? That's always a tough one to without using like a scale or somehow testing the humidity or the moisture level of the blend, which most of us don't even have. The rule of thumb, and again, this is experience to solve this or to figure this out, but rule of thumb is if it clumps together when you squeeze it and like stays clumped together, then it's probably too wet. All right. So I have penny farthing here and it doesn't really clump together as far as like stick together from stickiness. It still breaks apart. On the flip side, and this is not an issue per se in this video, but if it's too dry, it's going to sound like dry leaves. You'll be able to tell. And if it's too dry, you're going to lose some of the flavor. So you don't want it too dry. But it takes time to determine this. So don't expect to figure it out in the very beginning. But you do, I would say, err on the side of dryness than wetness, because you're going to have to struggle with keeping it lit if it's too wet. It does depend also on the person's point of view and the type of blend. Some people like to have their Virginias a bit drier, like I do, and then English is a bit more wet, on the wetter side, and that's probably where I fall as well. I can handle a wetter English than a drier Virginia. If you're a beginner, that's not something you need to worry about so much. But Again, too dry, you lose your flavor. Too moist, it's going to be harder to keep lit, and you're going to risk tongue bite. So I want to encourage you to keep it on the dry side. Give time in practicing this and figuring it out. If you have a local tobacconist or pipe smoker you know nearby, let them show you as well, and that might be a bit more helpful. So we go from the moisture, we figured that out, so you can check that box off, you think you got it right, and then we go to packing the pipe. And so this is the next aspect we got to figure out, because you can have the moisture right, you can light it right, but if you packed it wrong, especially too tight or maybe even too soft, too light, you're gonna have to light it more than needed. So I have videos covering pretty much every type of blend cut that you can go check out. You can check it out in the playlist. I don't have shag. I don't think I have a plug cut yet. I'll cover the plug cut later. Penny farthing's a shag cut, but just go with a ribbon. This is a really easy one to pack, but I'm gonna go ahead and pack it here. And the idea is to basically have a loose pack first, and we press that down. A firmer pack, and then even firmer. All right, so loose, firm, firmer. I've heard it said mama bear, or excuse me, baby bear, mama bear, papa bear, what have you. That's something you can go off of. Again, I'm gonna encourage you to go to those videos to nail that down. I'm not gonna go much more into this. But you have your pipe packed. You wanna make sure you get it in an orderly packing where it's a bit loose on the bottom. And then as you get higher, it's firmer. So it properly burns through. And the airflow is adequate and you don't have any issues there. So make sure you pack your pipe correctly. So we go on to the initial light, and for that I'm going to try to give you a closer look at me lighting it. So here we have my pipe. I did light it once because the camera did mess up while I was recording this, but it doesn't matter. My pipe is packed, your pipe is packed. Now we want to give it the initial light, so here we go. So as you can see, the top layer is charred, just about nearly overall. While I was lighting it with the initial light, I did inhale a bit, meaning just brought in my mouth and back out to get it started, okay? So then we're gonna move on to the secondary light, and before we do, we wanna give it a haircut, as some people call it. So take your tamper, and just gently tamp down the ash to keep the ember on top of it with the rest of the tobacco. So there we are. There's the secondary light to really get it started and to bring that top ashy layer down into the rest of the tobacco. And to do so, not only do we light it, but as we're lighting it, we do inhale a few times, and that should get it started and get your ember really going. So with your pipe lit, you had the char light and then you had the secondary light. It's getting going. Then we move into our cadence. This is one of the tougher aspects of lighting our pipe or keeping our pipe lit. Just smoking the pipe altogether, that requires practice, is building a cadence. You want to sip the pipe and you want to have some type of constant rhythm, if you will. And it's not something you're going to totally be thinking about, but you'll eventually just do it without, just passively, without thinking about it. But as I was thinking through how do I smoke my pipe, I usually inhale every 3 seconds or so. And again, when I say inhale, I mean in my mouth and back out, or in my mouth through my nostrils, so giving a retrohale. So I'm going to do that. I want to practice a few times and give you an idea of how it goes about when I am smoking my pipe. So every time I am inhaling, I'm going to be putting back out some smoke out of my mouth, but also in through through my nostrils. So I'm inhaling, I'm bringing it through my nasal passage back out. The reason why I do that is it does bring out quite a bit more flavor for me. So it is going back out both nostril and mouth. Not everyone probably does that. That's up to you, but that is what I do. But this cadence is every 3 seconds. And again, it's gonna depend on you. Please understand that. But some type of rhythm like that is going to help keep your pipe lit. So the ember is being fathered or babied, whatever way you want to describe that. But it's also making sure that it doesn't overheat your pipe. So that's the extreme, isn't it? We don't want to be puffing on it a lot. You're going to overheat your pipe. It's not going to be good for your pipe in the long run, but you're also going to lose flavor. You don't want that. But if you don't smoke it enough, well, then it's going to go out, isn't it? So you want to give it a rhythm. Make sure you have enough smoke coming out. And basically, as you can see, just slowly, you do see puffs. If it starts going out, what do? Do you have to light it? Maybe not. So if you're puffing, you got a good rhythm going, but all of a sudden you're talking to someone or you're doing something else and you lost your rhythm, you can stoke the flame. So you probably see me do this often, where I put my finger over the top and I inhale. I'm giving it some air, bringing in some air through the passage to try to flame up the ember to get it going again, and that often solves the issue. As you can see, it really brings about the flame and builds it up again. Just like a fire, if you ever made a campfire or in a wood burning stove, same thing goes on there. Finally, the last thing we want to think about as we're going through and smoking our pipe is occasionally tamping it. And all that is, it's not pushing down with your tamper. It is just lightly settling that ash that we're building. We're building up a layer of ash and we're tamping back down lightly onto the rest of the tobacco. And that's keeping that ember going into the rest of the leaf under it, the blend under it. All right, so every once in a while, the way to tell as you gain experience doing this, even with a good rhythm, is your smoke production slowly going down. You can tell by that, and if it is, you can tamp it down. You might be losing flavor all along with it. You can tamp it down lightly. But again, I want to stress, it is like the weight of your tamper. That's all that's being put down on it. It's not much at all. If you press too far down, you can extinguish the flame, the ember itself. So we want to keep track of that. Notice how I was talking. What do? Do I need to relight my pipe? Hopefully not, especially if the moisture's good. I can stoke the flame. There we go, and it's back going. So, again, practice to that. Get your cadence going. Every 3 seconds or so, inhale, and breathe back out. Inhale, breathe back out. Tamp it when you need to. If you go talking to someone, you're gonna have to light it, more than likely. If you put your pipe down and you start going to do something else and you come back or what have you, you're probably gonna have to relight your pipe, and that's okay. That's all right, but we can go through these steps. We can try stoking it to get it back going first, and if that doesn't work, then we just quickly relight it with our pipe, and it should get going with no problems. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have further questions, feel free to leave them below, and I'll try to answer them, but I hope this was a good step-by-step just to get you on track and something for you to practice with. So again, encourage you with patience on this. It's going to take a while, but we'll be able to get it, and eventually you won't even think about it. You will get there. You won't even have to think so much about smoking the pipe. It's just going to happen. And that's actually makes it hard to teach this, because a lot of times I'm not even thinking about anything about my rhythm or cadence or stoking it. These are just things I do naturally. And eventually, just like any other hobby or any other practice we do, the more times we do it, it'll just come naturally to us. All right, so be patient. So guys, that's all I have. I hope that's helpful. And I hope you're doing well this week. And until next week, we'll talk to you very soon.